A few birds swoop by the window. They pass Cassandra's pointing finger, an obscure portion of the outside road. And if you turn left, just before Sunset Bridge, you'll find the bakery. Anita makes the best bread in all of High Rannoc. You should see what they cook up at the taverns. Every Tuesday, solid stuff. Solid stuff. The gray-haired young man doubles over, coughing in his seat. His motion rocks the carriage, disturbing an otherwise simple ride. The man sitting beside this coughing individual reaches out and for the 7th time since arriving to the village, pats his back. Holding up a hand, the gray-haired man, Yosef, sits up. Oh, it's gonna be the death of me. Across from the coughing man and his patter, Cassandra smiles. Well, it's already getting to your brain if you think the tavern makes better bread. She's waved off. Shaking his head, Barret returns to the window. A falling sun watches over High Rannoc, its gaze painting lonely streets, listless trees, and the occasional glimpse of a shoreline. Every so often, an animal or a person fills the scenery. They vanish as fast as they arrive. The world is still moving, but at a much slower rate than Tanith. If this was to be home, Barret would have to slow down. Turning to the coughing man breaks all notions of relaxation. He had a job to do. High Rannoc needed a physician. Of course, there wasn't going to be one. Barret was all they would get. A vaguely trained chemist. No. He graduated a successful and official chemist. Luck made him a vaguely trained physician. You really should drink that salve, Barret says. But before Yosef can respond with little more than a finger, Cassandra points out Barret's opposing window. Ah, right here. Look, look. Your home is coming up. Conversation forgotten. Barret leans around the gray-haired young man and watches as the house approaches. The cottage is little more than a single-story hovel. Lumber of all sizes cling together, making way for the occasional window, or sometimes boarding where a window should obviously be. The grass, the lawn had been mowed, and a fresh arrangement of bricks guided one from the road past a worn, multicolored picket fence to a fresh doorway. It seems that some effort was put into refreshing the home. Barret realizes that his vocabulary needs to expand because he's pretty sure he just thought the word fresh multiple times. He reminds himself that he's not a writer. What do you think? Cassandra says. She sounds a bit hopeful. It's, fine, it's great. World's better than the orphanage. You're an orphan. Yeah, don't think too much about it. Sorry about the roof, by the way. Yosef knocks on his chest. I was supposed to get it cleaned up for you, but... Well, I don't think you could have planned for it, right? The carriage comes to a stop. Still, my job to get these things done. Will you consider it payment for when I heal you? A lithe figure lands outside of the carriage, the motion caught just within the edges of Barret's periphery. He snaps to it, watching as a blonde-haired woman approaches the carriage doors. She yanks one open, and with a flourish of her dark-skinned hand, says, "Last stop, High Rannoc. Welcome home, chemist." He meets her smile with one of his own, but then turns to Cassandra. She does a similar, albeit restrained, motion, flourish of that hand. And Barret hops out. He lands on well-maintained cobblestone. Gets a deep breath of Rannoc's clean air. It's so much quieter than Tanith. Well, yeah, it's a village. He turns to the woman that said that, the carriage driver and traveling merchant, Michaela. He wasn't aware that he had spoken out loud. Yeah, I mean, you're right. But, she shakes off her head, opens the door beside him, and Cassandra steps out. As she lands, she places a leather cap on her head. It's a deep brown except for a brass button at the top, lending just a bit of color to her otherwise shaved head. "Let me get your bags and I can get them myself," Barret says. The sentence is punctuated by Yosef coughing. "It's the final part of my job. My final duty, okay?" She reaches in her cloak and pulls out a brass key. It's a shade off from the button on her head. "You just take a look around, and I'll be in there shortly." Who am I to argue with such warm hospitality? Barret takes the key, thumbs it into his palm, and then turns to Michaela. The long-haired merchant offers a smirk. "Glad to see that you got here intact." Oh, what can I say with such reckless driving? Reckless? I'm sure it was all the roads and not you. I'm sure. See you around, chemist. You too, merchant. Let me know when you're ready so I can get going. Have some final deliveries to make. Michaela grabs onto the top and then drops into the... I want to call it a coachman's box for some reason. That's definitely not what it's called. The driver's seat of the carriage. Barret takes about 2 steps before stopping and turning back to the open wagon. "You stop by tomorrow, and you just come and see me when you have the necessary, ingredients, the potion, whatever you're gonna do." "Yeah, for sure. Drink the salve, please." "Physician's orders?" "Chemist's orders." "Those aren't the same thing." "They are here." "Give you that one." All right. I'll drink the salve." I'm sorry, what? "You can't cuss here," Michaela says from the top of the carriage. Out back, Cassandra has just finished taking the packages from, the carriage. She's holding a knapsack full of Barret's clothing and a small suitcase. And it's obviously not a suitcase. They didn't have straight suitcases, but a small case nonetheless. "The former witch cast the spell," she says, "over the entire village. You can't curse here." "No." "Give it a try." No. That amuses me more than it should. It's because you're a child. Yeah, definitely. Cassandra uses her elbow to close the back of the wagon. You're good to go, Michaela. All right, see you two around. Bye. And the carriage moves on. It rolls away, leaving Barret a clean view of his dirty home. The maintained grass, the near-flawless bricks that would guide him to the doorway, and the patched-together picket fence. Well, I can't go in until you do, Cassandra says, still holding his effects. You're not a vampire, are you? Barret begins walking down the pathway. Not that I know of, but hey. You never know with the future. Yeah. Key to latch. He lets himself in. The fading sun reaches past Barret, throwing his shadow along deep, scuffed grounds made of wood, revealing an otherwise cozy building. And he's hit by the immediate stench of waterlogged wood. It's layered, mixed in with lavender? I thought you might want something for the smell, Cassandra says behind him. Near the edges of the approaching sun is a new counter. Well, newer than the rest of this single-story hovel. And sitting on that counter is a tea light flame. Oil burns over it, no doubt the source of lavender. Stepping into the musk reveals a bed thrown in the corner of the house. An open door just past the counter, revealing a cabinet, he thinks. Your bedroom, Cassandra says. To the left, a kitchenette and an oversized, vaguely rusted cauldron. Your witch brewed a lot? She did? Oh, I'm so sorry. Here, let me help you with that. I got it. No, you don't. He reaches between the crook of her elbow and takes out a long tube. He places it on the counter beside the single thing on top of it. The burner. What you got, a telescope? No, travel easel. You're a painter. Where can I set these down? By the doors, fine? Yeah, that's fine. You can just... Thanks. Is there anywhere I can even buy paints in the village? D6 to the Oracle. I was gonna say it would be likely, but then, like, that's just putting it in my favor. It could be unlikely because of a small village, but we'll just leave it neutral. D6 on the Oracle. Is there somewhere within High Rannoc that Barret can buy paint? No. And... no. And I don't think there's much of a need for painters here. I hope you have canvases or whatever you're going to need, because we don't have any. Oh. Hopefully Michaela can bring me something. I'm sure she could. Before I forget, she says. Sundown tonight. There's a welcoming party for you at the tavern. There's a map we left over there on the bed. The patient's bed. You have your own room, as I said earlier. Just come at sundown. I'm sure the town's excited to meet you. Yeah, of course I'll be there. Right. Well, I'll let you get settled. I was supposed to go and tell Mayor Riley when you arrived. Okay. Thank you, by the way. You're welcome. We appreciate you coming. I appreciate the free house. Only free so long as you help us. And with that, the door closes. Barret's left alone. In his new cottage. A half smile plays at his face. There's a sense of accomplishment here, but nothing's really been done. She should have left the door open, he thinks. Could definitely use the air. Though the oil was a nice touch. Door reopened, light let in. Barret takes a look at the stone buildings across the street and the sun that paints them. How much sunlight is left in the day? We're going to do a base of 2 and then a D4 on top of that. So D4 plus 2, how much sunlight is left? 6 hours of sunlight. There's still plenty of time before night falls. Time to explore the village, check out his new home, get settled. Grabbing his bags, Barret sets the knapsack right at the foot of the patient's bed, but sets his case on top of old straw and fresh bedding. Well, at least that's new. And he pops open the trunk. At the start of most RPGs, I give players the option of starting with 3 items. We're going to do that here. As mentioned before, Barret is already starting with an art easel. The other items that I gave him are a boar hair brush and a beginner's blade. Note that the beginner's blade is referenced as a sword within the book that we're borrowing it from, but here we're going to say that it was a dagger. He reaches into the trunk and pulls out a small wooden box. Placing it on the bed, pops open the latch, revealing a small assortment in bottles and alembic. A small amount of oil. Nothing seems disturbed. Good. It would seem that. Hello? No response. The door is still open. He heard no one approach. The bedroom, just past the counter, undisturbed. The tea light is out. Hello? Barret calls. No response. Reaching into his trunk, he grabs a hold of the small dagger. A modern day dagger, because I don't have a fantasy one. Someone here! No response. That sound. Vaguely magical. There's nothing vague about it. It was magical. He steps to the center of the building. Glances out the doorway. Nothing. The street is just as still as ever. The kitchenette, undisturbed. The cauldron, unmoving, no flame beneath it. No, just the tea light is out. He approaches. The art easel, untouched. A small amount of smoke rising from the once lit tea light. The oil above it probably still warm, but there's something beside it. A book. bound in leather, covered by a brass button, tied with a frayed rope. This wasn't here before. Hesitantly, he undoes the rope. If you're reading this, I'm probably missing, or dead. Let's hope just missing. I wish I could be there to explain all this in person, but life takes unexpected paths. Hopefully this journal will be enough to guide you. So first up, welcome to High Rannoc. It's a nice place, even if the people can be a little disaster-prone. You'll be taking my place as village witch, and will be responsible for curing them of whatever injuries or diseases they've managed to pick up. I don't know how much you've been taught afore, so don't be insulted if these instructions seem simple. Leaning onto the counter, Barret turns through these pages. They're a little hard to pry apart, but each one is filled with a plethora of information. Regent names. He recognizes some. Shieldcap, Moon Lotus, Hiker's Help. Others are alien in nature. Each comes with a small description and how they would help. One in particular catches his eye. It's circled. Darkwater. A favorite of the demons found in The Strange. Dark water is a sickly sweet soda that has some useful medicinal properties. The Strange. Capitalized. Like a location. Right beside that, scrawled in loose handwriting, are the words, sometimes found in Heroes Hollow. With a page number. Awfully convenient for the witch's guidebook, he thinks to himself, to have page numbers. He flips to it. Heroes Hollow. Behind the cliff-sized skull of an ancient beast lies the twisting tunnels, tombs, and caverns known as Heroes Hollow. A dungeon that has grown throughout the aeons under the rule of countless keepers. While it's mostly ruins, there are still plenty of things to find down beneath the ground. Another turn of the page, following an arrow drawn at the bottom, reveals a map, crudely drawn, of High Rannoc. There are surrounding places, a forest, a shoreline, mountain range, and a beast skull, each with names, but the beast skull is marked Heroes Hollow. A few more pages in reveals a list of diseases, alphabetical in nature. He goes to V. Ventriloquist cough. Under a list of known curing regents is Darkwater. Setting the journal down. Barret turns to the open door. 6 hours. It shouldn't take long to get to Heroes Hollow. What if he could find this Darkwater? Bring it back before the sun sets. Have his debut. And cure someone on the same night that he arrives. Yeah, I'm gonna do it. Darting over to the trunk on his bed, Barret pulls out a long red cloak. Sleeveless, of course, much like a cardigan, and grabs his leather satchel, slings it over his side, returns to the counter, beginner's blade, and a small little sheath at his side, and he scoops up the journal, binds it once more, shoves that straight into the satchel. 6 hours is more than enough time. Door closed. Cottage locked. Barret sets off towards this hero's hollow, intent on becoming one himself. Okay, second episode done. This is actually a little less than half of what I filmed that day. But I ended it here because that last line of this episode felt like a period, like a full stop, like a good place to end it, and then turn page next chapter. I was going to continue editing it at first, but what was coming next didn't feel like a natural continuation. It felt like a jump and like, okay, we're here now. And I didn't like that. So I know that when I get into the next episode, I'm gonna have to do a new intro of sorts just to make it flow a little better. I guess we'll see how natural that'll feel. Hopefully. It's not terrible. We'll see how it goes. As I keep playing this game, I just want to make it terrible comedy hour. I don't know why. I guess my idea of cozy is terrible jokes, even though that's not any of the cozy games I've played. It just it comes out, you know? I guess the whole point of the solo RPGs is you say the first thing that comes to your mind, like right now how I said RPGesus, but it was RPGs is, right? Not, ignore that. But it's just like you're supposed to say the first thing that comes to your mind as I do these things, and then I just say lame and terrible jokes. I knew that I was going to have to censor my cussing when I started planning out this series, because swear words also just come out, you know, they're part of my vocabulary, I can't get rid of them. And I thought of the animal thing, I'm like, would that be too much? Would that be silly? You know, hopefully it's kind of funny at least. I gotta remember it when I do the actual game so that as I cuss, I can try to bring up a natural reaction of like, you're an animal or something like that. But I like how yay, cozy series, but then I'll cut off the music and try for a tense moment with Barret not being sure what is actually happening inside his house. What can I say? Even my cozy has to be dark, grim, and uncomfortable. Wasn't too bad. But that's all I have to say for now, I think. Yeah, that's about it. I hope to see you in the next one. Until then, I'll be in other worlds.